Welcome to the Brain Scrub, a somewhat improvised approach to mental health. My name is Glenn Sollers, and thanks for tuning in to this episode. Last episode, I had Jason Duncan on with me, and he and I are still working towards putting together a new podcast. However, I decided, because I am so passionate about this topic, that I'm going to keep on going with this one. However, I'm not going to be publishing as many episodes every month. I'm going to be cutting that down, and I will publish when I feel inspired by something that's going on in my life or something that I have heard. And today is no different, around something that really struck me as I was reading a book, and the book is by David Brooks, and it is called How to Know a Person. And this was introduced to me from one of my colleagues' partner, and she came out to me and she was really excited about this book. And I said, well, tell me what it's about. And she said, it's about just understanding people and the importance of knowing and getting to know a person versus just this shallow conversation around, hey, how are you doing? What's new? What's exciting? How's the weather? And that kind of stuff is kind of boring. And by really truly wanting to learn a person, it's amazing what can come up in conversation. And the main point of this book for me is to know that we're all different. We all have different experiences in life, and we form certain habits at a young age in terms of how do we make it through this world? How do I survive? What do I need to do? And these habits play out into being an adult. And if we can start getting curious about other people and understanding a bit about their childhood, what are their fears? What are their expectations? If money was no object, what would they do? What is an event that happened in your childhood that made an impact on the rest of your life? All these types of questions can really help us get to know a person at a deeper level, versus what we sometimes do is we'll label people a certain way based on our experience with them. And then we might tell other people about our experience about a certain individual. And this is something I talked about in an earlier podcast, which is called agreement reality. And this creates disconnection. Why is connection so important to me? Well, first of all, I grew up in a family that was very disconnected, and I felt very independent. So for me, when people don't work out problems, when they don't resolve things, for me, it's very unsafe. It feels very unsettling, and then I can't be real and authentic with people. But if people took the time to understand that in me, they would understand, well, maybe that's why Glenn wants to resolve a problem. Maybe that's why he wants to talk about it, which was a big step for me to do in my life, because I tended to avoid conflict and accommodate people, and I wouldn't assert my own interests. And as a result, it actually created more conflict in my life. And think about those people or those situations maybe where you're doing the same thing, where you just would rather not talk about it. And that's okay. We're all different, and I get that. And the impact it might have on you, on others, on people in question, things like that. So for me, it's a sign of safety. I've never seen people in my earlier life resolve issues and resolve their differences. And now I am so passionate about it that sometimes I become very pushy, very persistent, which can be very off-putting to some people. And I get that as well. I was doing a workshop, and this is how I kind of wanted to come to this topic as well, stress management. And there was a number of people in the workshop that were saying, you know what, we're in our 40s, our 50s, and why is it that we're more stressed out now than we were when we didn't have much, when we were younger, when we were exploring? And I didn't really know how to answer the question other than saying, I think we have more pressures on us now as we approach our retirement years. There are things that we're looking at in our future. We want to make sure that we have what we need in our future. And when we're younger, we don't have a lot of these different needs or wants, or even thinking about our retirement. It's just we're trying to do the best we can and live our life and have fun. And then as we age, these pressures do come upon us. And we think about our health, and we worry about the money, and then we have family connections, and then we have parents who die, and then there's all these things. Children leave the house. So stress levels go up. Now, when we are stressed out, it is harder to want to get to know other people because we're more in survival mode, trying to make it through the day. David Brooks does an exceptional job at just talking about this, and how by being curious about other people, by asking them about their life, we can start getting why they might do what they do, versus putting our own judgments and opinions on other people, creating these labels that we have for other people and not seeing them as a human being anymore. And that does come through listening, open conversation, having a willingness to learn, having a willingness to grow and develop. That's been a struggle for me as well, because sometimes I'm very set in my own ways and it's hard for me to want to listen to other things. But once I do actually open up my ears and think, what's your perspective? Tell me a bit more about that. What's going on? What's working? What's not working? Things become so much easier, and my stress levels actually drop, because it's not about me anymore. It's about we. It's about making that connection. And I've talked a lot about that in previous episodes. David Brooks, in his book, he gets into a lot of these different methodologies on how to create this in our life. And I tried it the other day with a friend of mine. We were out and I asked him a very powerful question for me. And by asking him the question, the amount of information that came out was tremendous. And it wasn't necessarily an easy conversation, but I felt so much closer to the individual because now I understood other parts of them that maybe I didn't see before. And we all have different parts. We're made up like a puzzle. We have certain parts to us. And sometimes when we can tap into those individual parts, we start to understand the entire picture. Like, for example, I have a part of me that is scared and anxious. I have a part of me that wants to please other people. I have a part of me that wants to get stuff done. I have a part of me that wants to be perfect, that wants to control. I have a part of me that feels I am responsible for everything else out there. And when I can start looking at those parts and I can start seeing how it shows up, like, it's funny, I was at a comedy show the other day and a good friend of mine was hosting the show. And I had this sense of responsibility in the show, even though I was just an audience member, that I wanted to monitor and make sure everybody was having a good time. And everybody's happiness really helped me become happier. And this is a sense of responsibility that my external environment needs to be in a good place for me to be content. And if it's not, then I feel completely different. The beauty of this is just seeing how it all unfolded throughout my life, because I grew up in an environment that was very unhappy, and how I really want that now. But when I can share that with people in terms of this is what I do and this is why I do it, of course people might say, well, just change. You know what? You shouldn't be doing that. Just be something different. Of course, I know I would rather be doing something different. But we have habits. We have the way we operate. You can't change a 4-cylinder vehicle into an 8-cylinder vehicle by snapping your fingers and giving it more power. It is designed the way it's designed. And if you want to change it, it does take awareness. It does take time. It takes really recognizing that, hey, I'm going down this path that I normally go down. And no, I'm going to do an about face and go somewhere different, and reframing things in a more positive light. Because some of these things have been very helpful for me in terms of wanting everybody to be happy, which has really helped facilitate my career as a facilitator. And there's still certain areas in my life where I need to work on that. So the point of this all is that when you find that you might be offended by something that somebody says, or they may say something that's inappropriate, or people might appear disrespectful or rude, to really think about, I wonder what might be going on. And wondering what might be going on doesn't make any difference to your state of mind other than building possible anger, resentment, disgust in other people. So, what should be done? Talk to people. Find out what their intention is. Let them know what happened through dialogue, not through texting, not through emailing, because so much is lost in translation, through actually having a conversation, which is not always an easy thing to do. But if we can start building community, building conversations and leveraging that, then we can remove misinterpretations of information. We can start building stronger relationships and reducing some of that stress burden we have in our lives. There's many things I can't control in my life. I can't control the economy. I can't control what other family members might or might not be doing. But I can control my interpretation, my reaction to those experiences, and have a conversation about it so that I'm not building more negative energy or more upset about something that's going on. If we can all start doing this, at least some of the stress can start to wash away, and we start reframing things towards a positive light, regardless of some of the darkness we're up against in this world. Consider, what are those things that maybe are driving the way somebody's being? Let me get curious about that. And David in his book has a lot of examples on how one can do that, so we don't look at people through our own lenses, how we have filtered the world, through our own perspectives, our own judgments, because we all have different filters on. And David says in his book, there's not one person that's the same in this world, yet sometimes we look at people like they should be the same, but they're not. We're a makeup of complexities, and we wrap all those complexities into a human body. If we can start tapping into that, understanding it, we can start making sense of the world, making sense of others, and moving from what we might perceive as our truth to the truth. It leads to more open and honest dialogue and love, community, and that's my purpose in life. Thanks for listening.